so everyone can sit and actually have a dog.
Then we had a dog and then we don't smoke.
Yes.
You advocate for inclusivity, and I think with maybe not everything you do, but in many things that you do, you try to bring this to the surface. And I want to know first, like, what motivated you to work with this topic?
Specific to people with disabilities, it has to do with the fact of doing Harmonia. This is Harmonia where we work with dancers with a physical disability. So I came more in, like, I was really in contact with them. So this whole factor of advocating or maybe giving opportunities or trying to share opportunities that I have with people with disabilities came specifically like from this work Harmonia. What I think that in general what accompanies me or my way of being is more like if like I always thought, okay, I work in a theater and I have this chance as a non-German person who came to Germany to study, and I studied dance and I now direct a company. Like, how can I share this experience, but not only the experience, the possibilities I have. So it's more like out of this mentality of ally. When I have something, how can I give the possibility to people who don't have it? That is something that I always have in mind, and then it becomes very specific depending on the situation. So in this case, because of working with Harmonia, I thought, okay, now we work with them, did this piece, and I got to know them a bit more, but how can I extend the chances these people had with us working in a state theater doing a dance performance, like not to just a one experience. And this is also something we talk with Gregor when we think of like how can we develop this further, or what does it mean for the state theater offering this space to dancers with disabilities. And then that's how I develop, for example, this workshop thing that I do. You know, like we always do tandems. It's always me and a dancer with a disability, and in general I conceive the whole workshop with them, but I give them the space to direct the workshop. And basically something that we'll do together. I don't only translate, like I offer the space, but it's basically I give them the space to develop their own workshops. And I accompany the whole thing, and I try to give it the focus that we think that in the frame is necessary, depending where we give this workshop. So this is something I started doing very much, because also sometimes when we go on tour, they ask for workshops. So out of this possibility we had, but then also independently, like if I see there's a possibility, for example, now there's a dancer who danced Harmonia and it's not dancing it anymore, Janelle, and she is invited to come and do a research week. And so I told her, okay, let's try to get you to give some workshops, and I will contact my venues, that like my friends that I know, maybe try to find out if he or she gave already a workshop here. There's again interest, and how can we then open more space that it's not only like she comes for one thing, but how can we then expand this? So this is in the context of disability and accessibility and giving more chances and creating more representation, let's say. So for me, this is more like, okay, how can I share what I have? Because I come from Costa Rica, which doesn't have the same structures. Like the system that it's in Germany, it's very privileged with this very stable position. So it's more like, okay, if I manage to get somewhere, how can I share when I'm there? Because I'm in a position that I can allow this to happen, with whom I can share it, who can be represented, who can get a chance that otherwise, if somebody else would be sitting in my position, would not get. Now I discovered that it's more being an ally.
And then how is it for you to be an ally or to advocate for something that maybe you don't experience personally? Like, is there a line that you sense?
Yeah, for sure. No, I think it's more like giving a chance, but then in the moment that you offer the chance, then you always have to be, or I have to be careful not to think this is what they need. I have to ask. So if it's things that I have not experienced or that I don't know anything about, like having a disability, I would not say or decide. I would propose, I have this chance, You know, like with the workshops, it was a bit like this. I said, we could give a workshop. I have these ideas for workshops. What are your ideas? And then we started having a conversation and we created something that was a bit in between. And there was one experience. I was with two dancers with disabilities, and it was the three of us directing a workshop, and we had meetings every day before the workshop, and we realized that we had very different interests also on what we want to share. So what we decided was it was a 3-day workshop, but every day one of us would leave, so that the other ones are more like supporters, but that we give the chance, because it was very complicated, like all going to the same. And also it was not the aim of like changing somebody's proposition or idea. So this is one type of experience I had. And another one was then really, let's say with Florent, when we give those workshops, then it's clear that it's his workshop, and I'm more like structured in a way that I think maybe because of my experience with, like, I'm not a choreographer, but I have been in many processes, so maybe more like in these directing groups or something that he has less experience, then I would think, okay, let's start with this, let's do this, you want to share this, so let's go this way, like more in communication, but out of my experience. But it's very important what you say, not to think, okay, I'm here and this is what I offer you because you need it. And then in cases of discrimination, I mean, I have some experience in this experience. I have experienced discrimination sometimes, so it's more like understanding how people feel in this situation, or thinking, okay, minorities are not seen in certain areas, or more thinking like what would be the natural procedure of a selection, and then go a bit against it. Okay, who wouldn't get this chance? Trying to think a bit out of the box of the rhythm, that, and say, okay, this person probably would never get a chance. So then maybe sometimes you need the support, because of course, in many cases minorities would not come and apply to a dancer's position. Let's say, this is not the right example, but sometimes we have to understand that if people are not there, it's because also they never had possibilities. Some people say the theater is very wide, so why should I even go, people of color? Because I know the program is wide. And so trying to change, and that's why representation, who is on stage, what am I seeing, and why would then it will be interesting for me? Or maybe making a first step and saying, okay, because the theater is very wide, can you come and help me change? But it's like the change in such structures is very slow, and you have to be very patient, because it's a structure that exists, like especially this state theater is very, very long, and you don't have to give up. You also somehow have to like understand also that things might not immediately work the way you expect. And this over carefulness, like you have to be aware, I think, but like treating a person with over careful, like being over careful, and then, like giving these things, sometimes it's also more a contra than a pro. You know what I mean? Because then you're not really giving the chance that the person deserves, let's say. I learned with Floranta and Leisa, for example, dancers from Harmonia, I learned that humor also, it's a very good part. Like, anyway, they make so very hard jokes, and Florent sometimes tell me, because I get pissed that his wheelchair was not on time, and he's frustrated, but then he tells me, Ale, like, if I would live like this is my reality, if I would always be pissed, like, I would not go out of my home. Like, you have to like switch it up, and it's great that he manages.
And since you say you are part of different structures in Germany, but also outside of Germany, you travel a lot, you see a lot of cultural events and different structures. And from your observation, what would you say that works in terms of accessibility and inclusivity, and what still is a big gap? Or is it the general feeling, let's say, maybe around Europe?
I think every country is very different also on the awareness, and in many cases, Germany is trying to be very aware, and there are a lot of programs of creating accessibility in this sense, like festivals and things. But in many cases, there's like, sometimes you feel people are doing it because the effort is being done, but there's very little of this understanding, okay, what is the situation? But it's a bit what you said before, because they go from their own experience, and then they see somebody on a wheelchair and would think, oh, he needs a ramp, which probably is true, but it's more like, we always think from our own point of view. And so this stopping and asking yourself, not even yourself, stopping and asking the person, what do you need, is something that we like, that needs to be done. And then depending, I don't know, I would say UK is super advanced in all this topic, because they have been working, disabled artists have been getting a chance since many years earlier than here. But this is something that I only observe. I don't know very much, like I haven't had the experience, let's say. But I would say, I just think, out of my experience, I just think what happens is that there are so many barriers that are invisible barriers, and not only like in the fact of like the little step that you didn't think to go into the restaurant, you're being confronted the whole time. So sometimes when we are on tour with Harmonia, like, and I spend days with them and I stay and give a workshop, it is so exhausting. It's really like, I admire them so much, because it is the whole time you have to face a comment, you have to face people looking at you, you have to then, I don't know, wait on a line for the accessible toilet, and the person that comes out is the person without a disability. The whole time there's something going on. And then to book a train ticket, it has 10 steps also on top. To go on the plane, you give your wheelchair and you ask for your, like, it's clear that the person needs the wheelchair at like when going out on transit, and then they don't get the wheelchair, they get in another wheelchair. in the racism context, you would call it microaggressions. It's like all the time you're listening and hearing and all this, and probably it's also the same in the disability context. It's you're experiencing microaggressions and you're all the time being confronted. It's super exhausting. You cannot put yourself in front of like this situation unless you're really experiencing it. So when I accompany and when I'm with them, I experience this, and it's really like chapeau, I would say, like how much patience and also resilience on like keep on trying and being part of this society that it's all the time giving you a comment all the time. It's just not built for minorities in this sense, let's say, because I mean maybe in another sense you experience also is if you're not European and you live in Europe, and let's say in our case in Germany, and you're all the time, I don't know, being looked at because of your accent and, you know, like not being understood also because of your way of being, or so it's a constant, you have to prove yourself all the time. I think this is what it's exhausting. I also don't want to put it super negative. I think it's more like empathy is very important. Also like, yeah, putting yourself in somebody else's shoes, like understanding, okay, I don't know what it feels, but then just asking. I think asking and being transparent, like on things that you don't know, it's super important. If you want to be an ally, like, yeah, understand also how to support, how to help, how to give, because like you said, it's not something you're experiencing yourself. So it's very important that it's clear also for the other person that the aim is to support the needs, but not just because you think.
In the process of art making, let's say as a person who does not experience disability, like the majority of other reasons for being discriminated, because I see this opposition sometimes or very often between artistic choices and making art that is accessible, and
Yes.
yeah, how to like not feel that you have to compromise
Yeah.
your artistic choices for inclusivity, but how to like work with it from the beginning, from the ground. And
I mean, I think when you're doing artistic work, it has to be clear that it's not social work. It has to be clear that it's not therapy. These are also other fields, and it's very important that they exist. But I think that if it's clear you're doing, let's say, a choreography or you're doing an exposition of painters that have a disability, that it's something that in your sense of art, that it has the value or that it arrives to your expectations as, let's say, in this case, a curator or a choreographer. And if you're not transparent and you're like putting these things aside, you're not being fair with them also, you know? So I think it's maybe hard because, of course, and there it comes to possibilities, because many of these artists, let's say in the dance field, that have a disability cannot be or don't have the possibility of studying dance like people without disabilities have. So there's a very small group of people who make it to schools or to have like all this preparation like we have without disabilities. And so of course then you come and you do an audition for everybody, but how many people with disabilities you think will apply? It's very, very hard because they don't have the same chances. And it's a topic that moves around. And how can then you not only, you know, like I understand the question or how do you then decide on things? But I think doing favors is not a good thing in this case. You know, it's not about doing a favor, and it's exactly this. It's about giving a chance. And this is the difference. You know, like maybe you see there's potential. I don't know, let's say a person, let's stay with this disabled dancers, makes a choreography. This person is still not a choreographer, but you want to give the chance, then I don't know, then maybe you start doing a feedback session. More than encouraging, more than saying great piece, I'm going to book it, maybe you give this person, I don't know, a sessions like a mentoring program. You know, you have to like create strategies for giving than what is needed in that case. And then maybe it's about creating this mentoring program where the person gets encouraged and learns about choreography, and then the next piece has a bit more of structure and works better. Or maybe the same thing with dance. Maybe then it's about offering dance classes and creating a space for this person to train and to learn a technique that doesn't exist in everyday, like in the everyday natural, like, I don't want to say normal because I don't want to use the word normal, because what is normal at the very end? You know, it's like the mainstream established exactly body type at dance education, if we're talking about dance. And I think this is the case for many other things, not only dance.
Yeah, since you are mostly working on, let's say, expanding borders and ideas for other groups of people, how do you then take care of your own borders? Do you put this into relation?
No, I think it's hard, of course, when you're creating this awareness of like, okay, what do other people need, or what do other, let's say, what chances do I have? Like, it's very easy to start thinking and start putting too much emphasis on what others need and completely putting yourself aside. It's very easy to fall into this. And I don't want to say I forget about myself, because it's not true, but it's true that in many moments I drop what I'm doing and I go and do what is needed. It's not an emergency at the same time, and that's probably why I struggle with my job. Sometimes I feel I should be doing something more useful. And I think it has to do with personality, of course, but sometimes I think I should be, I don't know. There was an earthquake in El Salvador. It was very, very big. And even my brother, we went to a private school, but even his school got like shut down. And there were many months without schools, and many kids who had lost their homes, and many families it was a disaster. So I wanted to go back. I thought, okay, what can I do to help? My parents live in El Salvador. And then I said, okay, I want to go back and work in one of those camps, just like work doing some dance classes. I mean, just so kids have something else to do than to be on their own and suffering and everything, to have something that has to do with their body, to move, So I went back to El Salvador, and then I started investigating where I trying to meet the camp directors to do, and there were many earthquakes after that big earthquake, and it was so fucking scary that I got scared for my life. Like I was so scared that we all die, because everything was just coming down, that I could actually not help out. It's not that I can go to war, I realized, with my way of life. I was too scared. Then at the end, I didn't do anything. I brought my brother to Europe. I brought him to Germany for a year, and I told him, okay, then go to school there. So this was my way of helping somebody next to me, let's say. So what I wanted to say with this only is that, of course, I went over my own border, but because that was a physical border, immediately I had to stop, because I was not able to. I was just too scared. And it's something that, because you're thinking, okay, in which other ways I could help or be there, or then you forget about your own, let's say, border or your own limits, or I don't know. I realized maybe sometimes much after. Also in this disability context, during the whole production, and then for the first shows, my role was not to be the assistant of Adrian. She was with Chava, so I was something in between, but I also did, I'm not a psychologist, I'm also not a social worker, so I was a bit like in this in-between position, and I was having all these talks of things that were not working, because we wanted to make things work, but then I became something more than what I could actually offer, and I am maybe very intuitive, and then I react and I try to find ways, I try to ask and I do things, but then after there was a moment where I kind of collapsed, because I was taking care of things that I didn't know how to take care of, psychological problems, traumas from having experienced all the time rejection or discrimination because of disabilities you have, and I was dealing with these traumas and having these people all the time around me, not everybody and not everything, in situations that I couldn't handle or I didn't know how to handle, and I was trying, and then at the end you put yourself a bit in trouble, because then of course the persons count on you, but you're not able to offer what they really need. And so at one point, I don't know, I had a struggle with this person, and it became super intense, and I was also very hurt, not because I could have, because the person was mad at me, let's say. And I was like thinking, after all what I have done, this is what when I go over, and then I always think, after all what I have done, but of course, I understand I just shouldn't have gone so far, probably. It's a bit this. I'm still learning. Yeah, I think it's a bit this. Yeah, sometimes, and then you put yourself in situations that it's not that you shouldn't go there, but it's just that it's not your job to handle these things. I think also it's a character thing. During the pandemic, I had this urge of doing something useful with myself, because I thought, okay, everybody's dying, we're all locked in, and we think of art. For me, it was a very egoistic feeling. I think art is very important and that it's necessary that we have, but in such a moment, I thought, who cares about art? I need to do something that matters. And I got this phone call from this association that works with sex workers, and they needed a translator. It was it happened. Somehow I called it from the universe. And so I started translating for them, and I worked a lot for them during that time. And even after the pandemic, I stayed working with them for a while. Yeah, they paid very, very little, but I was not doing the job for the money. I was really just, I wanted to help in a way I could, and I mean, I could translate. So, and then there I feel I need this type of like contact with the ground somehow. And that's why if we do dance projects that have another aspect, I don't want to say a social aspect, but let's say when there's another human side and not only the dance, these are the projects that I put my heart in and where I am like, I try to be there. And it's what interests me because it's something that moves me. And which doesn't mean that I don't care about the other ones, but I just feel I can be useful.
Yeah. Thank you.